You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 95 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewart, and as always, I am with the helpful and kind Jeff Gargis.
Wow, I know those words didn't come from you.
Well, they may not have came from me today, because you made a few mistakes today that I definitely am going to hold over your head for a while. But you usually are quite helpful. I'm not sure I agree with kind, but this is from Janelly over on Twitter.
Janelly, okay. And what's her Twitter? What's her handle?
Her Twitter is at JANELLYARCE. She's actually somebody I've been following for a long time. I was thrilled that she submitted a shout out for you on our podcast. That was awesome.
And she's actually getting ready to start guest blogging with us over at teachbetter.com too. So keep a lookout for that. But thank you.
I love
That's
our guest
awesome.
bloggers. I was just reading a few of the blogs that were published this past week from Mary Ellen and a few others, and it's just so amazing to be able to go to one spot and get all that expertise from such a variety of teachers. I mean, I was even reading Michael Jennings had not a podcast. He had a blog recently published on that I enjoyed. So I don't know. I just think that that's so fun, and I love that we're featuring them now.
Yeah, it really is. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. It's fun because it's another way to help to try and lift up more teacher voices. But just like on Teach Better Talk on the podcast here, you and I talk about it all the time, is like, while we're talking to all these amazing educators, it's like the best PD in the world.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It really is the same for that, because we're bringing in all these different viewpoints and mindsets and ideas and stuff into that blog, which is allowing us to share bigger, better, more amazing content out to teachers everywhere, but also our, internally more selfishly, I guess, is we're learning every time we get to edit one of those blogs and put them out and stuff. So it's super cool. I love it.
I was looking through the blogs because I'm back to school. And so I was looking through the blogs now. Obviously, we pre-record these because I was trying to get some stuff ready for my classroom and get kind of my goals set for the fall. So I thought for the beginning, before we got into our incredible episode, we could kind of challenge listeners with their goals. Are you cool with that, Jeff?
I'm good with that.
You always challenge me, so I think us challenging other people will be kind of goofy. I was looking through these blogs, and I actually did a live professional development session in our private group this morning. And I think there's so much value in not only encouraging students to goal set and reflect, and we had some really great, rich conversation about that this morning, but I want to challenge our listeners. I want you to think about what your goals are. And I want to make sure that you're not just looking at that long-term vision, like, oh, this year, AKA May, right? Like, no, I want you to think about at the end of August or the end of September, or maybe set a goal up until November 8th when you're going to see us all at the Teach Better conference. Who do you want to be? Like, how do you want to show up for your students? Just like I coached some teachers this morning on having students setting a goal, we were using kind of like 6 weeks as our mark. That's a really great long-term goal. And you want to make sure you then don't stop there. You need to chunk those pieces out into those small short-term goals that you can slowly work your way towards. Because then by that 6-week mark or by that November 8th deadline that you're going to hit it, because you've had all these short-term goals kind of pushing you through along the way. And when I was thinking about my own goals that I have for this fall, I think that's really valuable, not only to incorporate in our practice for students, but to incorporate in our life. So I don't want to put you on the spot, Jeff, but I really, whether you're comfortable sharing a goal or not, I really hope that we can maybe get some social media going and tweet out or share out on your Instagram or your Facebook kind of what your goal might look like for the next few weeks or next few months. Because I think that that's how we hold each other accountable.
Yeah, so let's do that. If you're listening, tweet out what your goal is maybe for the next. I like the 3 week mark. I think that's a good one. And just hashtag Teach Better and or Teach Better Talk. If you want to tag myself and Ray, it's just at Ray Hewart or at Jeff Gargis. But yeah, let's see those goals. I'd love to see that. And honestly, I'm going to throw one more further. If you really want to get like super accountable, you can email me, jeff@teachbetter.com. Tell me your goal. I'll hold you accountable until you hit it. But Ray, I love that you touched on the short-term piece, because I think the old school train of thought is to plan out, 12 months, 18 months, 3 years, 5 years. And I just don't think that works anymore, because our world moves so fast and changes so fast that I don't even know if our brains can comprehend anymore trying to think out 3 years. And by the time you get to 12 months out, your 3-year goal is going to change. There's too many things going on. You're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to do things. So looking at just a couple weeks, couple months out, and then breaking them down, like you said, into smaller goals so you can chip away at them is the absolute right process to do. So I'd love to hear what everyone's goals are, and then also tweet us what your goals are, and then what you're doing today to go get those goals, to go try to achieve those goals. So really cool.
This kind of not only was inspired from our live session we did this morning in our private Facebook group, but also from Nick's interview. We have Nick Sutton, obviously, in this podcast. He's a great friend of mine. Jeff pretends he's friends with him too, which you'll hear about in a little bit. But Nick is an administrator who works to set that long-term goal for his staff, and then has those short-term kind of like check boxes to know that he's working in that direction. And I just think that if we all took on that mentality of holding each other accountable and making sure that we're all on that path leading us to our end vision that we're working towards, we'd really have a really effective system in the work. So I was really inspired by his mission in that sense.
Absolutely, always inspired by Nick. I think every time we talk to him. So Nick Sutton is a superintendent currently. He's got just about 14 years under his belt in public education. 5 years of that as a middle school teacher, 7 years as a middle school principal at 2 different schools there, and he is now going into year 2 as a superintendent in Illinois. He's also currently the co-host of the Learning Through Leading podcast, which he's going to share a little bit about as well, and kind of the journey and how he got there. So super excited. So much knowledge in here. We like Ray mentioned jokingly that Ray's known Nick for a long time. I've known him for a while now. We can battle all day long about who has the stronger relationship with Nick, but the bottom line is he's a fantastic guy. This is a great episode. I'm super excited for everyone to listen. Ray, any last second things to add to that?
No, just enjoy the podcast episode with Nick Sutton, and make sure you subscribe to their new podcast, because they have some really cool pieces that they're highlighting that I always enjoy listening to myself as I'm subscribed.
All right, let's get into episode number 95 with Nick Sutton.
Hey guys, while we take a quick break, I want to make sure that you are constantly thinking about how you are growing your network. We have a hashtag mastery chat every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. It's a great way to pop on, answer a few questions, and collaborate with teachers around the world. Hope you join us next Thursday.
All right, we're here and we're talking with Nick Sutton. And Nick, it is always awesome to talk with you. I'm very fortunate. I get to chat with you quite a bit through text and bugging you and stuff, and we get to come out and visit your awesome school every now and then. But it's super exciting to have you on the podcast, chatting with you, get to dive into your head a little bit more and talk about your experiences and what you're doing, and just get to know you a little bit more. Before we get going on any of that, man, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm thrilled. I think one of the best parts about education is you get to connect with people that have the same passion as you. So you guys, you're a group of people I just enjoy networking with. I enjoy visiting with. It's fun when you can connect with people both personally and professionally.
Nick, it's always so great to chat with you. Jeff, you made it sound like you guys talk all the time. Nick and I are way better friends than you. I'm not even getting to this conversation. I've known Nick for years. Okay, here, people. Come on.
Oh, it's 7-8 years. God, has it been that long?
I think it has. And actually, I want to talk about all of that. So I'm going to first ask you if you would describe a little bit about what you do, and then we can go into a huge saga about how you and I are better friends than you and Jeff.
Either scenario, I win, so I'm fine with it. God, I'm going to be going into my 14th year in public education, which, God, that didn't even seem possible in itself. Grew up in a little farm town in southeast Iowa and went to college at Western Illinois. So that's how I kind of ended up in the central Illinois area. I was always a middle school guy. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, middle school. I never really fell in love with the content area, so I was the guy that would change grades and change what I was teaching because I kind of like that. I was a middle school principal at 2 different middle schools for a total of 7 years, and now I am entering my 2nd year as a K-12 unit district superintendent.
And before we go any further, I just want to note that it's not the quantity of the years that you've known them, Ray. It's the quality. And I'm just saying, like, just saying. Anyway, so Nick, let's talk. And you and I, we've had lots of conversations, and we share a lot of common thoughts on things, like on a lot of different things. But one of the ones that we've talked about a few different times is failure, and reflecting on failure and using that to learn and to grow and to become who we are. So, 14 years, you've been teaching, you've been principal, you're superintendent, coming in your 2nd year now. Lots of different sizes of schools, different locations, and things like that. A lot of a long journey here. So I know there's a lot of stories. I've heard some of them. I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with us today. But can you share with us a time that you've had a failure in your career, in your life? Kind of take us there with you. What happened? How did it make you feel? How did you overcome that? And what did you take away from that?
I guess as I've thought about this question, I keep coming back to like specific instances where I was trying to evaluate somebody and it didn't necessarily go the route I wanted it to go. And here's what I mean by that is I'm a big proponent in personal growth and professional growth, and administrators are there to coach people and to make them better. And 9 times out of 10, I feel like if you got an evaluation where you see an issue or you see an area that somebody can grow, you want to massage and navigate that whole thing of you don't want to look the other way. And because at the end of the day, you got kids' lives and their academic experiences at stake, but it's a hard balance sometimes holding somebody accountable without destroying that relationship. I remember there was a time that I was talking to a bunch of aspiring teachers that wanted to be administrators and said, how many of you guys have heard of an instance where a teacher was really, really scared to have a difficult conversation with an administrator? And they all say yes. And I go, well, I'm going to tell you a secret. If an administrator knows that they have a delicate conversation to have with a teacher or a staff member, they're just as scared. Nobody likes it. Nobody's good at it. And so I can think of times where I wish I would have done something different because you want to make somebody better. And I can think of a couple of times that it didn't go quite the route that I wanted it to. And so it's been something that it takes practice. You get better and better at it because when it's all said and done, you want to do what's best for kids. And sometimes part of that is really making sure that you got everybody at their best.
Yeah, that approaching conversations like that's something. I mean, that extends across pretty much any kind of career where you're in a leadership position and you have to have those conversations. But I think you nail it when you talk about focusing on what the mission is, and obviously and our missions are helping kids. So the importance of what you're doing in those conversations to make sure that we're taking care of those situations and helping teachers to be the best they can be. So that's really cool. I love that you went with there. So let's flip that around now. Let's talk about a success that you've had. And this can be something big or something small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a successful time for you? And then what did you take away from that?
If anything, I am really proud of the professional development plan that we did as a district where I'm at currently this year. I think professional development, if it's not directly connected to teacher evaluation, then something's wrong. Because professional development, if it's not instructionally based, I kind of sometimes question why a district would ever do it. Instruction is the only thing that's like universal, whether you're a pre-K teacher or 12th grade advanced calculus. And so we really focused on quality professional development through peer walkthroughs, through direct collaboration, ongoing data analysis to kind of look at best practices. And I'm really proud of it. Like when I looked at kind of my pre and post survey results of how people were evaluating and describing the professional development experiences they had, it went really, really well. And that feels really, really good. Number one, it feels good to have somebody say, hey, we think this went well, we appreciate it. But it also makes me feel good to say, okay, so what we did this year, it should be conducive to higher student achievement. And ultimately, that's what we're here for.
No, I think that's so important. I mean, you want to make sure that the vision you're setting up as your district aligns with your vision of the student experiences you want them to have, right?
Absolutely. And that's why it kind of comes into, at least in my mind, a connection to what I talked about. Like when I think of failures is an administrator ultimately wants to do what's best for kids. And it's all about establishing those relationships with all your staff members to get them to the point to do what's best for the kids. And so a large part of that is evaluating objectively, holding people accountable, empowering others, cheering on the people that are doing everything right, and also providing the most appropriate and inspiring and engaging training to get them to where they want to be. I see it as as something that's very, very connected. And I'm always a little remiss and confused when a district doesn't necessarily see everything connected in terms of evaluation and professional development and culture like I do.
Sure. I mean, it aligns to, Jeff, I don't know if you see the same similarity, but in a few podcasts, we've recently gone back to this idea of these best practice techniques that teachers know are great for students translate very well into other avenues of our life. So just like a teacher looks at the standards, breaks it down into targets, and designs a purposeful learning opportunity for a student, progression towards mastery, an administration or leaders can have that same type of mentality, looking at the long-term goal and then ensuring that the learning opportunities, which is essentially the professional development, is really working and aligned towards the overall district goal. So I think it's phenomenal anytime I'm able to connect with any sort of district leader that sees the purposeful opportunity to provide teachers more professional development, because we're growing all the time. I mean, geez, I use this podcast as a way for my growth constantly.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's why we as educators, we're in such a cool time right now. For the longest time, teaching was seen as a little bit of an art. And I'm not necessarily wanting to get into that debate of whether it's a science or an art right now, but there is an explosion of research the last couple of decades of, if you do these things, students will learn. And so to me, it's like, it's not so much a question of what should we be doing. It's more of a question of, here's what you should be doing. Why aren't you doing it? And how can I help you do it?
Absolutely. I think that's such a great point. I mean, when you're looking at everything on education right now, you said that we're in a great time of education. What's exciting you right now about education and everything going on?
Well, obviously, I think everybody gets really excited, as they should, about the explosion of technology with, 21st century skills. And I think to a certain extent, I like where we're at with all that. I would say 5 to 10 years ago, there was this misconception, and part of me was probably even a part of it, that technology was somehow synonymous with a golden ticket, that if you did this was the secret way to make your school good. And technology is not an instructional strategy, and it's not a curriculum. And I feel like now we're to a point where, at least to me, I think there's more of a universal understanding that technology should just be ubiquitous. It's something that should be implemented. It's something that should just be a part of a limitless resource that's in a successful classroom. And so now that we've kind of gotten past that point, I feel like we're at a good place that we can get back to the universal basic truth of what is a good teacher, and that's good instruction. That's what really excites me, I think. I think we're past that one-to-one Chromebook false kind of notion that that's the answer to everything.
No, it's super interesting. For those of you that are listening that don't know or are just meeting Nick for the first time, I almost had an opportunity, Nick, to be a teacher in your building. It was like,
it was close.
It was so close. It was like speeding down the highway, like so close. You would have been an amazing administrator to work for. And I'm thrilled that experience didn't limit then us being able to grow as educators together. I continue to learn from you. There's so much that you've not only done for me and my growth, but you've continued to inspire and support my friends that have worked with you and continue as educators. So when I think about a person to ask advice from, you're on my list, Nick. No kidding. I mean, I called you a few weeks ago and needed help. And of course, I always, who are you going to call? You call Nick Sutton. So when you're thinking of a piece of advice that you would give to a new teacher, let's say, or a teacher that's new to a building, I mean, we're getting into the school year now. What advice do our educators need to be on this progressive movement of being better educators?
I think to a certain extent, like I could make a million comments within this kind of topic, but like, when I think about every success I've had, it's because of the people that I've been with. It's always a team approach. I could talk for another 30 minutes of just all the people that have motivated me and all the people that have impacted me and all the people that have helped me and just the unbelievable volume of amazing staff members that I work with both currently and in the past. And I think to a certain extent, it comes back to so much of the success of a building is going to be directly involved to the relationships and the rapport that everybody has with each other. One of my favorite things to do, if I get the opportunity to talk to a bunch of beginning teachers that are at the college level, I get to tell them, you did it. You picked the greatest career field. You're going to have so much fun. You did it. The hardest part in life is figuring out what you want to do. And guess what? You made just the greatest choice in the world. And so don't forget that, appreciate it, and then do your best to find other like-minded people that when that alarm goes off every morning, you are really excited to go where you're going. And the other piece of advice that I would give that's a little bit more specific, but it goes full circle to what I was talking about, is if you're a beginning teacher, don't be scared of your evaluations with your administrator. If they wanted to fire you, they wouldn't have hired you in the first place. And so if a teacher can also go into an evaluation based upon the mindset that this is for personal growth, this is to make me better, this is to get objective but friendly feedback, everybody improves. And so when they have that mindset, their kids are going to benefit from that. And I think that's a hard thing to argue.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard thing to argue. And I think that's a great mindset that hopefully young teachers can have. And all teachers should take that to heart, that, to realize that their administrators are just trying to do what's right for kids too, like you said at the start of everything here. And so I love how you brought that back around. Great advice there. Nick, I want to talk really quick. Something else exciting that I think is exciting that you have going on is a new podcast. So I'd
love to.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Like I've kind of talked about, the best thing about working in education is you network and you meet people and you get motivated and inspired by people. And so I met these two cool people named Jeff and Ray that had this podcast going that I liked listening to when I go for jogs and walks. And it was one of those things where it's like, I really like talking education. And to a certain extent, I've accepted, and I think this is hopefully a good thing, that this isn't necessarily just what I do as part of who I am. And so myself and a former colleague named Matt Jacobson, we created the Learning Through Leading podcast. We're about a month and a half old, and it's been great. We're up to almost about 10 episodes, and we kind of really get into the whole professional development and instruction conversations. If you guys can't tell, that's kind of a passion of mine. And so it's fun really kind of diving into that specific realm. And so far, we've had a hard time keeping up with the volume of people that want to be interviewed. So hopefully we kind of filled a niche.
Well, good, glad to hear it. And the best place for us to go find that and listen to it, obviously they can listen to on your favorite podcast app, correct? Is there a website or anything like that we should connect to?
If you go to learningthroughleading.com, all of our past podcast episodes are there. If you search anything to search out podcast, if you just type in Learning Through Leading, you can find us there as well.
Awesome. Good to hear you. Loving it. And if we want to connect with Matt, what's the best way to connect with him?
At YodaMatt68. I think if you can't tell, he's a big Star Wars guy.
Loving it, yeah.
I still have never seen those movies. I don't know if that shocks everybody, but
that shocks me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
I've never seen them. I don't know.
All right. Next time I'm at your school, we're taking the day off. We're not even going to pay attention to it. We're just going to sit down and watch them.
Maybe that's what I need. Maybe that's what I need.
I can't believe Matt hasn't got you to watch them yet.
I don't know.
That's incredible.
I don't know.
I just want to give a shout out real quick. Matt Jacobson, your co-host, is like an all-star. I love Matt. He was one of my first mentors, my first year teaching, and I'm so thrilled that you partnered with him. You're both, incredible educators with different expertise. So I listen to your podcast every episode, download automatically to my phone because I'm subscribed, and every episode is just gold. I really appreciate that you guys started that.
I appreciate that. And that's what it's all about, is like public education. We're all on the same team. We're all working for kids. And so it's like, you want to impact, inspire, and motivate everybody. You guys have done it for me, and it's an honor to hear that hopefully I'm doing it for you. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, make sure you go over and check that out on whatever podcast and app you're listening to right now. Check out the Learning Through Leading podcast. Give them a rating and review. Subscribe. Make sure you catch up on that. You have an opportunity now. There are a few episodes in. You can get in right now at the start of their journey and just stick with Nick and Matt the entire way. It'll be awesome. So super excited about that, Nick. And now I'm excited to put you through the ringer here with the next 6 questions. Your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. You ready to go?
I can do it.
All right. What is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
Google Expeditions.
Give us a book you're reading right now.
I always refer to The Whole Visible Learning by John Hattie. Everything that you want to do has research there that you can connect it to.
And who do we need to follow on Twitter today?
Weird answer, but I like doing this, is I encourage people just look up normal random teachers because they have so much to offer. And a lot of times I see people able to connect with them maybe a little bit more easily than maybe somebody who's a little bit more well-known.
Love it. Best YouTube channel or a website for educators?
I'm kind of just an edutopia guy.
Okay. Good resource. Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
Socialize with other educators, because this job can be very isolating if you let it be. And if you let that happen, it's not a good thing.
Love it. And what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
No problems are ever solved by looking the other way. You've got to address issues. There's nothing worse than admiring a problem.
Nailed it. There's nothing worse than admiring a problem. Love it.
That's a
Nailed
great
it, Ray.
I appreciate it.
Well, Nick, I want to make sure all listeners can continue to connect with you. You have so much content you're pushing out, and you're always up for any conversation, it seems like, with an educator. So you'd be a great resource. How can our listeners stay connected to you?
Big Twitter guy, at Dr. Nick Sutton. That's the easiest. I get a lot of correspondence there, and I enjoy it. I have a blog, drnicksutton.blogspot.com. I do my best. I'm kind of all of a sudden I'll have a bunch of posts, and then I might go quiet for a little while, but it'll stay active. Those would be my 2 easiest ones.
All right, and you can find all the links and resources and everything we mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those important links for connecting with Nick, as well as connecting and getting connected to the podcast as well. So head over to the show notes over at teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and review, we'd really appreciate that as well. And let's take it one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and the advice that's being shared here on Teach Better Talk, and share this podcast with them. Nick, man, it was awesome to have you on. I always love talking to you. I always love hearing your thoughts on things and your experience stuff. Truly appreciate you coming on and sharing it with all of us here, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I had an absolute blast.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.